Hi everyone, my name is Pianpian. I'm the founder and CEO of Amotions. Today we have Elena Mikhaylov here, and she's a global human capital leader and also executive coach. We're honored to have you here, Elena. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Pianpian. Thanks for having me, and hello, everybody.
Yeah, so today we're going to focus on talking about relationship building. Elena, I have a few questions that I have heard from the community, and I would love to hear your thoughts on these. So first
Certainly.
question is, what is the role of relationship building in getting a new job? There are several users that have mentioned that they're looking for something new.
Certainly, and of course, now especially as we're coming back from COVID-19 quarantine, right? I think new jobs are opening up. Folks are, certainly interested in either now switching careers or getting new jobs as maybe they have lost their jobs as a result of COVID in 2020. So now is definitely a good time to start thinking about this. So relationships and jobs are absolutely essential. And, if you were to listen to any self-development guru, I mean, anything from, Napoleon Hill, Dale Carnegie to Tony Robbins, and, let's take Oprah. All of them, certainly talk about the importance of relationship building and achieving success, whether it's in one's career and one's life and one's well-being. I mean, ultimately, relationships are, a really key factor in that. So if you're looking to, get a new job, certainly I would start looking at your network and revisiting those relationships that you have built over the years. And, I'm sure people would love to hear from you about how are you doing and what you're doing and what you're looking for. And, as you're building these relationships, always, see if what kind of value can you also add to your network, right? As you're approaching, your reintroductions, see what you can do for the people that you're speaking with. I mean, approach it from a very natural, authentic interest in what those people are doing. And I think this certainly will prove to be, a success, as you're looking for a new opportunity for yourself.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. That's great insight. And how about if someone is looking at something totally new and that like they might not have existing network in those fields?
Well, I mean, I think there's always ways to find people who might be interested or interesting, right? So I think the best way of approaching a situation where you're starting something new is to reach out to a community. I mean, there are Facebook groups, there are meetups, there are different communities, or maybe there's somebody within your network. I mean, maybe it's a second degree connection that you can ask, for an introduction. And I think that those types of connections usually are um, more on the, you have to approach it from more of an exploratory point of view, right? So you're obviously not an expert, you're looking to make a jump into something, so show the curiosity, show the interest in people's successes, what has worked for them. Ask for the best way of getting into the business. And I mean, quite frankly, don't be afraid to step down. I mean, like, maybe you've been a director in one role. I mean, you'll probably have to step down, maybe to individual contributor, as you're starting with a different, function, or with a different area entirely, right? So be curious and open to learn, right? I think that would be my advice.
I love the part about curiosity and also thinking about what values you can bring to the other person as well.
Absolutely. And, to tell you honestly, that is kind of the main thing. You want to get somebody's attention, you bring the value, right? You really want to see what would be interesting for that person. You want to see how you can enhance their and elevate their lives, right? What can you do for them, right? It's not always, super, self-centric. Obviously, you already know what you want. You have an idea as to what you're looking to achieve, but you're about to ask in a way for a favor, right? You're asking for somebody to support you. So think about of ways you can enhance that person's life. You know what I mean? Whatever it may be. Maybe there's another connection that you can, introduce them to, or maybe that's, a project that you can help them with, or maybe it's something else, right? That you can do for them to enhance their experience as well.
Yeah,
What,
that's
what, what
great.
do you think?
I think it's absolutely great idea on all of these, and I have friends or former coworkers reaching out to me on some of the ideas on these, or they're considering new things. So, yeah, I think it's the curiosity part, and people are always happy to help, and if they
Exactly.
can.
And I mean, I feel like people are very willing to, step up and, and help you. I mean, provided you're showing genuine interest in what they're doing. I mean, I think it applies to, the basic psychology here, right? You show interest and people are very happy to share, their insights, right? Because, but again, it has to come from a very authentic place, right? You're
Mm.
genuinely interested in them and what they're doing, not just pursuing, your personal agenda. I mean, like, people will be able to stuff this out very easily. So you need to make sure that
Mhm.
when you do these reach outs, you think about the other person as well.
Yep. Yep. All these great points. Thank you so much on these. Next, we're going to talk about the role of relationship building in our career.
Excellent. Well, I mean, we just talked about, the role of relationships for seeking a new job, right? And so when you're looking for a new career, think about a career as this big vision, right? It's like it's a timeline. So that's
Hmm.
that's your career. You started over here, you had this big vision, right? You're progressing towards your vision, right? And your career is a timeline. So your job, think about it as a point in that timeline that moves you towards the next step in your career.
Hmm.
So absolutely, as you grow within your career, I mean, your network should certainly, enhance, right? Like, you absolutely should do um, more connections. You should be more curious. And I mean, that is, part of that growth mindset, that you're curious about what else is out there. How else am I going to grow? Who else can I learn from? What else can I do? How can I contribute? And so, absolutely, the relationship building is going to be absolutely essential in your career advancement. I mean, the more relationships you build, the more value you produce to your, network, the more your network would be responsive to you as you're looking to progress to the next stage. So the more visibility you have, the more support you have. So I would say it's absolutely essential.
Now, how do you build your relationships in your career? Like, I think previously you mentioned curiosity, bring your own values, etc. Anything else to add besides that?
How do I build relationships within my career?
Yeah.
Um, so, okay, so this is going to sound really straightforward. I mean, taking action is going to be one of them, right? So you can't sit here and think, okay, well, I'm just going to build this network, or these people are just going to somehow come to me. What this means is you have to do an proactive outreach to your network, to your community, to people that you're interested in, right? I mean, you have to make yourself available, right?
Mhm.
For contact, right? You can't expect to sit on a couch and for network to just come, crushing in on you, and right? And then, well, and then feel bad that nobody does, right? The
Yeah.
whole thing here is that you have to be putting yourself out there. And I know some of the introverts here might be cringing and being like, I'm not putting myself out there, there's no way. But it doesn't actually mean that you have to be an extrovert to build value, to build a relationship, right? You can build relationships one at a time, right? It doesn't actually require you to be this extreme extrovert to talk to anybody about anything. In fact, introverts build the most, deep relationships, because they do take a genuine deep interest in one's well-being and one's thoughts and one's feelings and one's vision, right? So for an introvert, those relationships, are already being built on very deep connection. So sometimes actually extroverts, they may actually know a whole lot of people. And I mean, I am one of those extroverts. So I have to, make sure that the relationships that I have are not surface, that there are deep relationships, right? We're genuinely interested in them, that I have made an impact in people's lives as I go through my career.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
What do you think? I mean, does that make sense?
Yes, yes. It's interesting. I study sociology in my master's, and there's theory about the strength of weak ties and then also the strong ties. So kind of like finding the balance of managing different kind of connections and etc. And
Absolutely.
it's like, how do you allocate time to build different kinds of relationships and deepen each of the relationship if possible. Yeah, I think it's
Exactly.
very important.
Yeah. Very, very, very important. I mean, ultimately, it's all gonna come down to how genuine are you in that connection, right? And how genuine is your interest. I mean, ultimately, it's really great to know a whole lot of people, but the people who are going to move the needle are the ones that with whom you have built the strong, deep relationship with. And so, it's worth to invest the time and effort in making that happen. So I would say, given the opportunity, please do that. And I have a funny story to say, or to tell, right? So I went to college, and I mean, because I was here in the US alone, my family wasn't here with me. um I didn't quite understand that the whole relationship building was the key component. And quite honestly, I think that a lot of us didn't quite understand that. But the folks that did, have certainly advanced a lot further in their lives that didn't, right? And I'm super incredibly thankful for my
Mhm.
college network that supports me, and I still am incredibly great friends with them. If I need something, they're certainly there for me. But had I made that a primary focus, and I mean, I made academics my primary focus, but if I also made equivalently important the social networking within that, right? I feel like the opportunities would have been limitless from the get-go, right? So obviously, I had to do some catching up to that, but that was a big lesson learned. And that would be something that I would be teaching my kids, is to make sure you value the relationships, you build those relationships from the beginning. Like, it's important to get your academics straight, but it's hugely important to make sure that you are building those relationships from the very beginning, because they're the ones that you're going to be relying on throughout your career.
It sounds like this could apply to the workplace as well, right? Someone working
Absolutely,
at
absolutely,
any
absolutely.
places.
So you're coming in into the new job. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, take the opportunity to get to know people, right? I mean, I think that, again, from a social perspective, I mean, you're in the new world. It's immediately, of course, is difficult, right? We tend to, put walls around, we shut down, right? And it takes a different mindset to open yourself up and have the conversation, right? To ask somebody how they're doing, remember their name. Next time you say hello, call them by their name. It's like music to their ears, right? Somebody remembered their name. And I think that's huge. I mean, have coffee with them, ask them, like, what do they do, how are things going for them, right? And that right there is hyper important. It's actually how I've built my relationships even throughout my career, right? Is I've always taken, you know genuine interest in people and how I can help them get elevated to the next level, right? I mean, of course, it helps that I am, in the human capital, capacity. So that's my job to do that. But I mean, you also get a lot of HR people who don't really do that. I mean, they just function on the operational side of HR, right? I incredibly value the connection, and a human connection, especially now post COVID, is going to be huge. So take that time, get to know one person, write it down, make sure that you do this again tomorrow. So it's definitely a good practice.
Yeah, that's great. And I think I have learned in different theories and books that you want to talk about things sometimes not just about work, but people at work as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ask them how they're doing.
Yes.
What's important to them? What did they go on vacation? Why did they like that vacation? I mean, what was important to them in that? Like, what's important in their life's experience? Get to know them, because people are not always all about work. I mean, especially like when we talk about work-life balance these days, right? So, people want to talk about something else other than their immediate responsibilities. When you're building a relationship, ask people what matters to them the most. You know what I mean? Like, and you can always talk about work. That's a common ground. It could be, a quick opener, right? If you don't know where to start, starting to talk a little bit about work could be a good opener, but then segue into something personal. People want to be acknowledged as humans. And that's what's going to be important in the long run, is that you saw the other person as they were and for who they were versus the title or the job that they hold.
That's great. Yeah. I think like viewing someone that's a whole person, not just a work.
Exactly.
Important.
Yep.
Hi, Elena. So I heard from the community that there are questions about, like, as a leader or even just as one of the team members, like how do I influence people to do certain things or accomplish certain things? I'm curious, what are your thoughts on this?
Certainly. And I want to make sure that we clarify that influence, not manipulate, right? So two different things, right? When you influence somebody, you get that buy-in, right? So the influence happens when whatever it is that you are communicating is applicable to the person you're communicating this to, and the other person sees that as value or as something that they can buy into. So if you're looking to influence your employees, or even you want to influence somebody on social media, is providing the value, right, and providing the insight and perhaps a tool of how to do something, right, something that's important to that person, something that engages and elevates that person, is what will get you the influence, right? Building the right connection, coming from an authentic place is going to be key. I keep on saying the one thing that's hugely important is getting to know the other person and understand their needs. And I don't mean surface needs, right? We all sometimes communicate, well, I would like, simple example, I would like some water. Okay, great. Why would you like some water? Well, I am thirsty, right? So being thirsty is the is the core need. Needing water isn't you know what I mean? Like, I could be needing water, I could be needing juice, I could whatever. You know what I mean? The point is that like, don't go and just buy the surface answer. Dig deep, ask. So why is that important to you? What can you do with this? You know what I mean? Like, what are you looking to accomplish? Don't stop at the first response. Always ask what's the underlying issue and relate to somebody at their core.
Yeah, that's great. So, and what do you ask as a opening question to get people to start talking?
About what? Give me some context here. So
about what matters to them. For example, like as a scenario that like a leader asks this questions, like, I would like to have my team to come finish this, work on this thing, and make them be excited about doing this, and um, building a community among the teams, among the team members. Then, like, as a leader, how do I start this conversation with my team members?
So let me make sure I understand this properly. So you have a leader who has a project or a task that they want to launch, correct? And then they want their team to be engaged in that project, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
So how do you start a conversation about what needs to happen? Okay, so so influencing actually has to happen before this happens, right? So so influencing comes, so let me back up. So by the time you're asking somebody to do something, the person over here has to be already influenced. You know what I mean? Like they already need to be following you because they know why, right? They're following you. So when you're asking them to do something, it's a natural thing for them to execute on this, right? So which means that they already know why they're doing this, right? So if you're looking to tell people like that's what needs to happen, right? I mean, make sure that you're clearly communicating what it is that they need to do. You're clearly assigning roles. You're clearly asking questions, right? Okay. Do you understand what needs to happen, right? Okay. So what tools do you need? Like, let's, ask them to actually speak back to you how they understood something, right? But don't do it like in an interrogation style, like, well, tell me now what you say. But okay, but more into like, okay, so I just want to make sure, like you understand, or I mean, this is a new project. So how do you envision the project? That's a good question to ask. Well, how do you envision this task? I mean, what are some ideas do you currently have as to how you're going to approach it, right? That creates buy-in, because that creates creative juices for your employee to jump in and start strategizing. But at the same time, you're also listening for whether employee has actually understood what you just asked them to do, right? But the whole point here is that you want kind of to close that loop where you're not speaking at the employee, but the employee is actually repeating it back to you, so there's a clear understanding between both you and the employee as to what needs to happen, by when it needs to happen, what's reasonable. And sometimes even for you as a lead, or as a manager, or whatever, sometimes it's a bit of an aha moment, right? As you thinking through a situation, right? Maybe you had either unreasonable expectation, you thought something could have been done in 2 weeks when it's reasonable to be done in 4 weeks, right? And you're realizing this through a collaborative approach to problem solving. Or you're realizing that maybe you're short staffed, or maybe this is a much easier project and this can be done very easily, right? So you have to give that opportunity for the other person to come up with ideas, so you're not doing a one directional communication. So, and as a good leader, I mean, if you really want to influence somebody, that buy-in loop, absolutely needs to happen. This is how influence happens, because trust is there. Another way to, build influence, within your team, you have to develop trust. So, and again, this kind of goes into the whole thing of relationship building, is as you're digging deep, you're building trust, and that's the most important thing, right? Trust goes a very long way, right? So, but trust here is now on both sides, right? You now trust the employee because you have a clear understanding how they're going to be doing things, right? And your employee has trust in you because now you have given them autonomy to be creative in problem solving, right? So it's kind of it's a bit of a loop, but honestly, it's definitely very much worth it. But as far as influence building, like I said, when you're communicating your goals from the get-go, this is where you need to get that big buy-in, right? And so the big buy-in, a big influence, actually happens a little ahead of the actual project.
I think these are really good points. Building trust, and seems like the one task for a leader is to like make sure you also ask some open-ended questions, or ask question in a curious way to back to the team members or other people you're talking to, so that they can have a chance to voice their opinions too, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's exactly right. And actually, what is a brilliant thing, and this is maybe something that the community can learn right now. I said something. What Pianpian just did, she reiterated back to me exactly what she heard. This is amazing. This is how you get buy-in. This is a prime example how to get buy-in, right? She spoke, she got the key points from everything I just said, right? So it took me like 5 minutes to describe this. It took her 2 seconds to feed it back to me, but that right there made me feel heard, understood, right? And now I know we're on the same page. So that is exactly what a leader should do. Absolutely feedback with the employee.
That's great. Yeah, thank you so much.
Or
I see a smile in you, so that's great. Um, so I think these are all really great points. Thank you. Another topic that I hear often from the community, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, Elena, is how do we handle some tough conversations? So tough conversations could be with coworkers, team members, could be with managers, could be sometimes even with family members and friends. So
Mhm.
um, yeah, curious if you have any thoughts on this.
Okay, so I'm going to be a little bit philosophical here. So, um, you know, I don't want to say there's no such thing as tough or not tough or tough, easy or good, bad, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a perception. You know what I mean? What's tough for one person is not really tough for the other person, right? And so it's kind of hard to view it this way, right? I mean, everybody has tough conversations or the way they perceive them to be as tough, right? The thing is, you have to understand that is your perception and reframe it, right? Reframe it in your mind. And as soon as that mindset shift happens, it's no longer a dreadful conversation. It's more of an educational conversation, right? This is a conversation now about you, about your core, about you communicating your core, right? And about communicating your beliefs, right? And it's about getting buy-in and clarity with the person that you're communicating with. So first things to do is make sure that you get rid of the word tough, right? And I mean, again, you don't want to like say it's not there. I mean, it's obviously there. These are your feelings. You absolutely should acknowledge that, but
Right.
reframe it into more something that's productive, right? Something that you're able to resolve, right? It's a tough conversation is a
Hmm.
conversation regardless, right?
Right.
So treat it as a conversation, but you still have to, shift how you feel about it, right? You know, sometimes, like I said, if you're preparing for a tough conversation, maybe it's, a centering exercise, or maybe it's a meditation that gets you out of your head and out of your feelings and helps you center as you approach that. So you're, approaching it more from the pragmatic, balanced standpoint, right, versus from an emotional. Because ultimately, when we react with emotion, we're not in control. When you want to have a tough conversation, you want to be really clear of mind and you want to have control over your thought process, right, and over your emotions, right, and you want to make sure that you're able to communicate clearly, not emotionally driven. I mean, the thing with tough conversations, frequently they, come out with a burst and we then run out and then we regret everything we've done, right? So the point is that you have to approach any conversations like that, with respect for yourself and your opponent.
Hmm.
As I may call that person that, right? Or the person that you're going to have the tough conversation with. So first and foremost, like I said, reframe, right? Then for yourself, decide what is it that you stand for and what is important to you. Like, what is your where are your values in that, right? The tough conversation is obviously happening because there's some form of a disagreement where there is clearly not an alignment. Maybe it's not an alignment on values, maybe it's not an alignment on direction, action, whatever it might be, right? The point is that there's a misalignment. So you have to be real clear as to what's important for you and how important is that for you. I mean, is this something that you're willing to negotiate, or is this something that is absolutely 100% what it is? So that's great. So now you're real clear on what you want and what is, negotiable and what's not. So then you're proceeding, with actually communicating the truth. And that is the hardest thing to do because we're most afraid as people of rejection. And again, this is a very primitive, fear, right? Because if we're rejected, we're no longer part of the community. So we don't survive, we die, and that's the end, right?
Hmm.
So it's understanding that that's where this is coming from, right? So, and bringing it back to communicating your truth, you know, it's entirely possible that you will disagree, but it will not be the end of the world, right? Otherwise, this would be a negotiable thing, right? So if something is not negotiable, you have to communicate your truth, and you have to do it with the most empathetic way. Sometimes you have to say no to somebody, right? And it's a no, and then this is it, and just respect that. But you can communicate that and in the most compassionate way, right? You don't need to just, cut somebody off and be that, right? The point is, you still have to validate the other person's feelings if you want to continue that relationship, right?
Yeah.
So this is what we're talking about. The relationship is super important. Find the positive ways in that, right? So, okay, so you disagree with this. This is your, authentic response. You said that this is, this way, right? You communicated this empathetically, and then allow for that person to respond. I mean, give the person the capability to feel all the feels, right? And acknowledge that and be okay with that, right? Because we usually blow right past that, and because we just can't deal with other people's emotions, because oh my god, like how I don't know how to deal with this, right? So allow for that space and prepare for that ahead of time. Pause, literally just pause and allow the person to react, right? Whatever the person says to you, whatever they will say, and most likely, they will, acknowledge their frustration, or, maybe disagreement or whatever. And then at that point, I mean, if and this is something you certainly have to do a little bit ahead of time, think about what you can offer instead. Is there something you can offer instead? Maybe you don't want to, collaborate with somebody on something, but maybe there's another way somebody can make a valuable contribution, because, if they wanted to work with you or they wanted to do something with you, they obviously expressing an effort, which is not aligning with you over here. But think about where would you align, and communicate that alignment, to that person, simply because it may not be over here, but it may be over here. And allow for that opportunity to continue the relationship. So you're not cutting off, the opportunity to interact, right? But you're looking for, a future in, or a future collaboration. And I mean, sometimes people might surprise you. So you want to give that opportunity. You want to think about where else might this work, or how else might this work. I mean, maybe if it's, a relationship with your spouse, we're so comfortable in just, cutting things off, but, hold on for a minute and evaluate what would work, right? Propose something, right? And I think that will go a long way. I mean, if you're in, if this is a, professional relationship, think of how else you can collaborate. I mean, what else can you do? Maybe you have an introduction to somebody, or maybe, it's a smaller project that this person can do for you. So allow for that, and you will be surprised how grateful people will be that you gave them the honest opinion, but you see them as valuable, right? So offering them some kind of value, right, even though it may not be the right fit right here right now, but you're doing something here, will go a very long way. So I think that's probably the way to go. I mean, does that make sense? There was a
Yeah.
really long explanation here. So
I think it's super valuable. Let me kind of summarize the steps that someone can take away as like actionable steps. Like, one is make sure yourself is like centered, and you can do that by possibly like meditation, other way that like help yourself to get calm before you get into a conversation, and then kind of like change your mindset and say like, okay, it's a conversation. Don't presumably say like it's going to be tough. It might not be, or even if it is, it's okay.
It's an opportunity, right? It's an
Yeah.
opportunity to exchange, your thoughts, and it's also opportunity for you to voice your truth. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And then during the conversation, kind of like give the other person a chance to express their feelings, if there's feeling there, and acknowledge that if needed. And also take it as a way to find a middle ground if you have kind of misalignment, and then find a way to get middle ground there. Did I?
And search for an opportunity to do
Mhm.
something forward. So you're not just finding the middle ground, but you're also, because sometimes there may not be a middle ground. I
Mm,
mean, in relationships, maybe it's more so, but in more professional relationships, it's, finding for another opportunity
mm.
potentially. And I mean, if again, if such does not exist, maybe it's a different introduction. So that's great summary.
That's a
Excellent.
good point. Yeah. So it's like if you cannot say yes to this to A, maybe say yes to like another opportunity. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. I think these are very kind of actionable steps that someone can learn from. So I think we talked about previously on relationship building during the in your career, and as someone's thinking about how to grow professionally, how to advance their career, um, is there anything you can add to what we discussed in terms of relationship building?
Um, I think finding yourself a mentor
Mm,
is going to be a huge thing. Think of your life as a CEO, right? You're the CEO of you, right? So, and every CEO has a board of advisors. That's it, right? You have somebody who can help you steer in the right direction, right? Somebody who can advise you on, the best network to pursue, the best relationships to develop, the best introductions, right? And somebody who will be able to kind of help you stay the course. So if you can, find yourself a mentor, right? Find somebody who you respect and offer something in return, obviously. I mean, this is another relationship,
mm,
but you know what? I think that people are usually flattered to be mentors, right? I mean, provided that, obviously it's not taken away from them, because I mean, they're gifting their valuable time to you. So be prepared to share something back, right? But getting a mentor could be a huge career growth opportunity. I have seen, really successful executives who are, executives now, right, have had mentors, early on. I certainly have succeeded. I mean, of course, another way to approach this is, of course, getting a coach. And I think those two are not mutually exclusive.
mhm.
So, having a mentor is one thing, but having a coach that keeps you accountable and keeps you moving forward and keeps you, growing and developing professionally, I think is absolutely key. What mentor does is not coaching, right? So mentorship is not coaching and coaching is not mentorship. Equally, I think both are hugely important. But if you have to invest in one in your career growth, at least seek out a mentor first, simply because it will give you more direction, right, as to where you're headed, right? And then hire a coach to help you get on that trajectory.
That's very interesting to hear your thought on this as a coach. Um, how would someone approach a potential mentor, or how do they find that?
Well, I mean, there's certainly industry experts, right? I mean, there are groups for mentorships. I mean, of course, it depends whether or not you have access to the board resources, right? I mean, if you are not an entrepreneur on your own, right, but maybe you are within the corporate environment. I mean, sometimes asking the board for a recommendation for a mentor can certainly be something that's, as a possibility.
Mm,
I think that most VCs do have recommendations, for mentorship programs. So I would say, if you have access to that, then yes. I mean, if you're a more on the managerial level, then I say, you reach out to um, folks on within your network. I mean, I think that that's a huge opportunity for you to you know build build your network, but b also build a very close relationship with people who that inspire you, that who you aspire to be. So find that person that you think has done a really great job and interview them. I mean, this is this I mean, like, ask them how are they doing. I mean, like, talk to several people before jumping into a mentorship program. I mean, I you don't want to take the first person that comes off the street, right? Like, or the first person you talk to, and maybe they are. I mean, like, and then that's great, that works out. But I would have several conversations and see who it is that you're most aligned with,
Mm-hmm.
right? Make sure that you are aligned with that mentor who can guide you through your career, who does have a coaching leadership style, or a certain maybe it's a servant leadership style, right? So the person is already capable of giving the right feedback, right? So they've already been doing this in their career, so they will be happy to take you on as part of that, right? So I think that's certainly the way to go. If you are on more junior level, the same approach as for managerial level. Look at somebody who you aspire to be, somebody who is several levels above you. I mean, if you're a staff person, maybe you're looking for a director or VP level mentor, right? I mean, if you're a manager, maybe you're looking for a VP to a C level. You know what I mean? Like, it just depends, right? So think about you want to be not just one step above, you want to be potentially two steps above, because you're looking to be that next step. So so you kind of want to allow for some feedback as to how to move past that, right? So you want somebody who has a bigger vision than just one level above. Just my general recommendations. But you know what, I've also seen amazing mentors who've been just one level difference. And so you kind of have to have your right fit and have the open conversations and open-ended conversations, right? You don't want to ask yes and no questions. You want to explore the person and build a deeper relationship before you ask them to be an advisor to you. So I think that's certainly key. I mean, and make sure it's the right fit communication wise, right? Because you want to be open to receiving that person's feedback, positive or negative.
Yeah, that's great. I heard kind of repeated themes that from what you say is ask some open-ended questions, build deep relationships, um, being curious about the person and learn about the person before you discuss other things.
Correct. Exactly. That's exactly what you want to do. I mean, you obviously want to learn more about this person's career and their accomplishments and how they've done it. Does this resonate with you? I mean, is this something that's in alignment with your career vision? So, and before you get a mentor, I mean, don't be set on your vision, because you very well may change it, but at least have some idea. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, and if you need more feedback, then reach out to your network. I mean, like, have some more conversations before you know commit to something, because you want to make sure that you have given yourself ample opportunity to explore options.
Hmm.